Hey, welcome to Defining Life. I'm Nick Boris, and in today's session, we are going to talk about authenticity. I'm so happy to have you here with me today. I think this is something that I've struggled with my entire life, and I believe that a lot of us struggle with it, even if we don't know it. And so I'm going to describe some of the things that I feel help us really take a step back and look like, am I being my best true self right now? Am I being my authentic self? All right, before we get into that, I want to talk a little bit about last week's podcast. I know it was late getting up. I published it on the correct day, on Thursday, 2 weeks ago, but it didn't publish to Apple Podcasts. So I'm looking at the metrics and I'm like, man, nobody's listening this week. And what I realized later on the next week was it didn't publish to Apple. And I couldn't get it to republish, so I ended up having to remove it and then add it back in, and now it's published. Now we're back to where we should be, so I appreciate you for all listening. And yeah, always appreciate you guys and the feedback you give me. It's so cool. If you like this podcast, please leave us a 5-star rating and a good review on your selected podcast app. I really appreciate it. It helps us get out there and for other people to find me. So this past weekend, I actually went on a trip to California mountains right above Palm Springs. It was an amazing experience. I met a lot of very cool people, and it gave me a lot of insight into myself, what I've been working on, where I still have holes, but it also allowed me to be authentically me. When you're in an environment with a lot of people, you can see who you gravitate toward, who makes you feel more comfortable, where you feel uncomfortable. And it was a kind of an eye-opening experience. I see similar people now coming up. Now that I feel like I'm acting more authentically, I see similar people coming up more often, and I feel more comfortable with them. But it was kind of a roller coaster. Like the first couple of days felt, I kind of put myself intentionally, maybe unintentionally, in a super vulnerable place from the start, because my idea was I want to work on anything that I still feel like I have a lot of room for improvement. But as the weekend went on, I actually started to feel pretty good. I started to feel a little bit more confident in my own skin as I saw other people and the things that we all deal with, whether it's being authentic or feeling lonely or relationship issues. It all kind of made me feel part of a group and community of people, even if it was for the short term. And then you come back to reality, and maybe you don't have the same support group, around where you live. Maybe you're sort of stuck in a circle of people that don't allow you to be authentic, don't allow you to be who you feel like you are. And so that's what this episode is going to be about. And it's funny because this topic keeps coming up, and it's come up like daily since I arrived back. It literally landed on my doorstep. That's a story for another time, but literally landed on my doorstep for me here. And so I've been working on this, and I just keep getting more and more reinforcement with it. So I think this is going to be an important one for you. I hope it helps. It's certainly something that I've enjoyed navigating and seeing it crystallize and gaining the clarity in myself. And so, the way I feel about this is that, in order to be accepted, I feel like at a certain point in our lives, in order to be accepted, we kind of develop this like false self, this fraudulent self. And the duality between, fraudulent and authentic keeps coming up for me. And that's really, I feel like in our lives, we do this thing where, we want people to like us. We want to feel accepted. We want to get the girl. We want to get into the group. We want to get the job. We want to get the client. And so we behave the way we feel these people want us to behave. We act, we say, we do things that these people would like so that we can then be accepted. The problem is, once we start doing that, it's a slippery slope, and you end up in these relationships where you've never been 100% honest with them or yourself. And so that little voice inside of you that's crying out, like, I want to be heard, I want to be seen, I want to feel comfortable, I want to be weird, that voice gets more and more desperate the more and more you bury it. And then I think we get to a point in our lives where we're like, none of this feels okay. It all feels false. It all feels fraudulent. You're looking around and you're like, this, what did I get myself into? Maybe you're not using those exact words, but it's like that midlife crisis kind of feeling. And if I look back at my entire life, I mean, I started this early. Like, my sense of self-worth is from like doing whatever I can to earn a place with somebody. And whether it's solving problems or letting them emotionally dump on me or whatever that might be, or just doing whatever, like saying and doing things that would make me fit in. And it got me into groups of people that accepted me. But like sometimes things would happen and I'm like, yeah, I'm just not comfortable with this. Or I just wanted to, be weird and I didn't feel comfortable doing it because I've never shown that side of me. And I'm not saying weird like super weird. I'm just saying like we all have these little quirks, right? And that we want to be able to express, and we just don't feel like we can do it because it seems silly to the people we're hanging out with. And I don't want you to feel that way. I don't want to feel that way going forward. Certainly not. So, I do what I do. And it's like, talk about like the weird things. Like these are some of the weird examples. Like to some people are not weird at all. But to the people that I may have spent most of my time with years ago are super weird. Me having houseplants, me having fish, me meditating daily and having a set place with a pillow and incense and like where I can sit and meditate in quiet. I felt embarrassed doing that in my own home. Now my kids find me doing it all the time. And it's just normal. Oh, that's where dad meditates, right? In our society, like people pray and they don't feel embarrassed about praying, but meditating is a weird thing, right? I mean, and so that's what I'm talking about when I say weird. Like that's maybe not the weirdest thing, but it felt weird. It felt, like I couldn't do it because I wasn't being my authentic self. Now, my friends that I invite into my house now, oh, cool, you meditate, me too. Oh, you go to therapy. Oh, yeah, me too. Right? I mean, it's a different experience. And so, yeah. So how do we get here? How do we get to where I feel like I'm going? I think we first have to identify it and maybe figure out where the roots of it started. So I told you in the beginning, like we develop this ability to navigate situations and, be a fraudulent version of ourselves and not authentic, and we end up in this place. So what happens, I'm going to go back to here, David Brooks's book, The Second Mountain, The Quest for a Moral Life. This book I read a couple of years ago. If you've been listening to me that long, I've referenced it before. And the concept being that you climb this mountain that you think is yours to climb. Whether it's success, relationship, marriage, kids, whatever accomplishment you feel is your duty to have, tons of money, whatever it might be. You get to the top of this mountain and you're looking around and you're like, now what? And then like you're peering across this valley and you see this next mountain and you're like, whoa, maybe that's where I'm supposed to be. And this mountain is more rooted in the authentic you, the moral you, the one that where you want to accomplish things for the greater good and not just for yourself, not just to buy a new convertible or whatever. And so the second mountain is that point in your life where you're like, oh man, I got to make some changes. I really should be over there. And so, then you have to walk this path and figure out how to navigate to that second mountain. And so what I want to do is kind of give you my real world sequence of events here as I see it at the moment. This may change as I clarify this over time, but this is the way I see it at the moment. I think, the first phase for me was like a growing awareness of just feeling wrong, right? There was a voice of dissent inside of me. There was a little bit of a repulsive feeling with certain people around me. I just was not happy with relationships. I wasn't happy with how invalidated I felt. I felt disconnected. And the more I worked on myself going through Define My Day, learning how to meditate, learning to set boundaries, as rudimentary as they were back, 5, 6, 7 years ago. But I started to make like big changes at this point. And I wasn't certain that they were good for me, but they felt good at the time. So I made big changes in my business, changes at home, changes in my schedule. I also made some shallow, superficial changes, things I thought would make me feel good. I think it's important that, this process for me, it was an early version of what I'm doing now. It was a way for me to sort of spread out and figure out what was good for me and what wasn't good for me. And as I saw positive results, I learned like this is something I can do. And a lot of times, a lot of the things I started doing 7 years ago didn't feel right at the time, and I am now doing it. And now it feels right because I'm a different person. I have different habits. I have different mindset. I have a different outlook on life. So now they feel okay. Back then they didn't. So it was a time and a place type of situation. And so as this all happened, I gained new and new moments of clarity. And I started pulling away from the things that I noticed were harmful. Situations, relationships, habits, everything where I started to like gain this awareness of feeling damaged, hurt, like it was draining my energy. These are the places I started to say like, okay, I need to stop doing this. It wasn't always easy, and a lot of times I kept going back because it's what was familiar. And a lot of times, there's people that say, like, we keep repeating the same thing until we learn the lesson we need to learn. I threw myself up against that wall many, many times. But what had happened was I reached the top of that mountain. And it's funny because that mountain, you can reach that mountain from your career perspective, from your personal life perspective, from a holistic perspective. I almost feel like I've reached this mountain a couple times, or maybe I just was at a peak and then I realized, oh no, there's another peak. And so you get to the top of this mountain and you're looking down and you realize like you have a lot of stuff to get through to get to that next mountain. Like, as you're climbing down the mountain you just climbed up, there's a lot of things that need to be stripped away. And I think at this point in time, like you can really kind of go into a depression over it. And I think I did. I had like a low grade one going on for a while. And then this past year was a serious existential depression. Like after the divorce, a couple of like failed friendships, failed relationships, or not even, couldn't even get them off the ground. Like go on one date with somebody and then just realize like, oh my God, I'm not ready. I can't even handle this right now. And, just feeling alone, feeling lonely, feeling like I didn't even have a path forward. Like I didn't know what was going on, what was wrong with me. There's just a lot going on at the time, right? Just things just don't feel right. And it just feels like I'm not going to find a way out of this. But, through all of that, you kind of walk up to the ledge and like my choice was to like go as deep into it as possible. I read everything I could about everything I was feeling, every situation I feel like I'd ever been in, relationships, loneliness, finding like purpose for myself, making a home for my soul inside myself. All of these books that are currently on my book list on the website. I mean, I went deep into this to the point that it was like almost concerning for people around me. Like, maybe you're reading too much. Because I really just wanted to know. I almost felt like I was like, okay, I need to figure this out now. I don't want to waste any more time. And the realizations caused more pain because I started to see things in the world around me that I wasn't aware of, again, in those relationships. And so looking at all of this, it brought me to this like cliff where I'm like, what does any of it matter? Like, if I'm not here tomorrow, what does it matter? If I'm not doing my job anymore, what does it matter? If I can't be a good father, what does it matter? Right? And so, as you start asking these questions, what is life for? Right? Why am I here? What have I done with it so far? And is there anything I can do that would bring value to myself and anybody around me? And when you start having those thoughts, I think a next step in that process is that, okay, like now that nothing matters, then why do I care so much about what other people think? Why do I feel like I have to explain myself? Why do I feel like I have to put on a show for anybody? Why do I feel like I need to compare my car with the guy next to me? Why do I feel why do I feel the need to do anything that I've been programmed to do for my entire life? And the answer is you don't. You don't. Like and I got to this point like where I was thinking like if I lost everything, what would it matter? The only thing that matters to me is my kids at the moment that I was thinking this. And so if I want them to be healthy, if I want them to stop a cycle that I was seeing, if I wanted them to be good men, happy men that were doing what fulfilled them, like that's what's important to me. Right? And so I came to this realization that I just need to live in a way that makes me happy. And that means deconstructing a lot of what's going on for me. That means like when I notice patterns of behavior with other people that result in me not feeling good, I need to either back away from those relationships or I need to stop myself, become aware of it, and pull myself back a little bit and observe a little more, listen a little more, just think through what I'm about to do or say before it happens. And as I did that, I felt freer. I felt more authentic. And the other thing that happened here was that I pulled like back from the things that were pulling me around. Right? When you don't care about the things that you realize are not important, you can spend less time doing them or no time doing them. And then you have more time to find the things you do care about and invest in that. And so for me, that's what I did. I minimized what I was doing. When my kids were here, we were out, we were having fun, we were doing things, we were, going to sporting events or, driving around on the weekend and going to the fish store and all this other stuff. But when they weren't here, I wasn't going out trying to connect with anybody I could find. I wasn't, starting new projects around the house that were going to drain me. I really spent more and more time trying to bring calm and sort of taking a minimalist approach because I figured if I could pull it back as much as possible, I could make better choices moving forward because I would have the freedom of my time and energy to do that. And the entire like fall, winter, early spring for me, well, it's not even spring yet, but fall, winter, it is spring now. The whole fall and winter was like a tear down and rebuild project of myself. And what I really found was that creating space for myself to just sit and think, creating more routine was incredibly important and valuable. The more meditation I did, the more centered I felt. The more I read and learned, the more understanding I had of myself and the people around me, which enabled me to be less reactive because I sort of saw how things could play out as they were playing out. And I had more energy. And so I'd go to bed earlier. I'd try to break habits. I would try to be healthier, sleep more, exercise more. I improved my diet. I found that I like eating salads that I grow myself. So I grow, like, I literally have like 15 heads of different types of lettuce downstairs in my kitchen that I'm growing right now because I enjoy making salads from them. And I like the way I feel when I eat those salads. So now, like, as I've tried these different things, right, as I've tried growing, vegetables, as I've tried, different styles of meditation, I'm finding what I like in an authentic way. Like things that just really, like, all by myself, given a choice, what would I do? And I'm finding that these are the fun things for myself, that the engaging things that I can do where I feel comfortable, and I can get out and maybe meet other people that also like these things, which would eventually bring the points of connection that I'm looking for. Now, the hard part has been integrating this into my daily life, because as I go about, sporting events, other social things that I'm still involved in, integrating the me that's in this house and the me that's outside of the house on the street, it's harder than I anticipated it was going to be. I still have the responses in my head, the behaviors in my head that, like, they're like automatic. It's like neurons that were just wired tight, and they're just like ready for that stupid joke or that, like, that snarky comment or whatever. And like I've really had to try to, like, center myself and really bring it together so that I am the same person in my house as I am outside the house. Because it's even just overall, it's that draw to be the person that somebody else expects you to be. Because a lot of these relationships were built back then, right? So people expect you to be a certain way, and when you show up as somebody completely different in their eyes, it's going to be weird. So it's a matter of trying to make that proper adjustment. One of the things I've been trying to break free of, and it really this past weekend reinforced it, the need to be heard by people that don't want to hear me. This idea that, you're going to get support from the people around you, while nice, doesn't always happen. And, when we want to be heard, whether it's that little voice inside of us or just us overall, we want to be heard. We almost, like, it's like oppressive. And so I really had to be conscious of, like, who I would even try to talk to, and minimize where I was looking for support or any kind of guidance, because, it's just, I was surrounded by the wrong people, and I was looking for it in places I wouldn't find it. And that almost makes it worse. So, I had to be careful about that. Which is also why going to books is good, because books don't judge. Books, you learn. Other people have gone through the same things as you. So if you have an issue that you're going through, I guarantee there's a dozen books you can read that would be excellent in helping you navigate that. And so, as I'm testing and learning through this process, as I'm, like, going through the weeds in the valley between the two mountains, I'm testing directions. I'm testing paths. I'm finding, where there are paths that I'm going down that I'm like, you know what, I got to turn back. I don't like this one. I'm testing. And so Parker J. Palmer, I read this years ago, and it still resonates with me. It's this idea that, like, you can open a door and go through it and decide you don't like the room you're in, turn around, walk out, close the door, and lock it, and never go back in again. And so we do this as kids where we test, what we like, what sports, what subjects, what activities, the people that we like, right? And we have the opportunity to do that now. We just don't realize it. Where you can step into a room, look around, maybe mingle a little bit, and if you don't like it, you can turn around, walk out, lock the door, and never open it again. So now you know that path is cut off. So you don't a lot of people feel like I'm going to waste my time doing something. And that might be true if you already know that it's going to be a waste of time. But a lot of times, it's that experience, the new experience, that opens up new doors for us or a new path. But, taking the opportunity, sometimes you got to go wide, sometimes you got to go deep. And in this case, I was going wide, trying to figure out what I liked, who I liked, where I liked hanging out, what activities I liked to do. Open up a lot of doors. And then as I find ones that I'm like, you know what, that one's not too great. I stayed in there for a little while. It's not feeling totally comfortable. So I'm going to leave that, lock the door, close it, never open it again. And now I have these other options that I've not closed yet, and I can go that direction. And that's the way I look at everything I do. I'll try it once, and if it's not me, hey, I can close that door. Now I know, right? And so a lot of us that feel completely off balance or inauthentic have really never had that experience. I've done it a few times in my life. I did it, we all do it naturally as kids. I did it in my business where I tried a lot of different avenues for revenue streams for my business. And I started some, maybe ran them for a couple of years and then closed them down as they just were not good for me. I didn't enjoy running those businesses. And so now for me, it's on a social level, on an interest level, that these are the things I think I'm interested in. It would be cool. It would be cool to play guitar. It would be cool to, run a marathon. But when it comes down to it, if I start doing it, I'm like, you know what, this, not for me. Close the door, don't do it again, find something else. The other thing that I started finding, and this is where this past weekend with a group of people helped me out, is that when you're in different groups of people, you can figure out who you gravitate toward, who makes you feel good, hopefully for healthy reasons. And then you can identify why you might not be compatible with those people. Because I'll tell you what, I grew up in a totally different environment as the people that I find myself gravitating toward now. And the problem with that is that I am not necessarily the person that they would gravitate toward, because I haven't built the skill set, the experience of being in their circle, in their group, in their environment. And so I find myself, going into these groups, perfectly good experiences. I like it. They're accepting. It's just not quite clicking, and I feel a little bit insecure because of certain flaws that I can identify in myself. The other part of it was in being with other people that fit you better, you gain a sense of worth. In this group that I was in last week, I have an autonomic response to not feel worthy. And I kind of thought I was over it until I was in a group of people, and I had it again. Even though at points in time it was proven to me that wasn't the case, I still had this little voice in my head that said, this person doesn't want to hear from you. This person doesn't want support from you. This person doesn't want, compassion from you or even your presence, right? And I had to be proven over and over that wasn't the case. And it was still I had to really rationalize that thought and think through it. And I really know that I came out of that experience knowing that that's something I need to work on. And so the thought, and it's actually two affirmations that I wrote in my Define My Day this month, is that, I will bring value to every relationship. And the other affirmation is, it's not my responsibility for the other person to receive the value. And so it's a, like for me, like the thought in my head was like, do you want, like, do you, like, could I, like, rather than that hesitation, I'm going to come with what I have. And, if you don't want to receive it, that's okay. Let me know if you ever do, but I'm going to go this direction. Right. And so I think it's a healthier way of looking at it. And it's been clarifying for me. It's been encouraging for me, actually, like now that I feel this. So, again, it's a growth area. It's something that I had to sort of figure out through experiencing new relationships with other people. And these people are people that I would want to be with, right? I'm not looking for this type of connection with people that, I don't want to spend my time with, or that would not bring me value also. And then in the end, like what this all does is this creates kind of a portrait or a landscape of the life that I envision for myself, the type of friends that I envision for myself, the lifestyle that I want to lead. And then through the clarity of these experiences, I can look at myself and say, where do I need to do the work to achieve these things? What do I need to do to present myself in the best way possible so that I can have the healthy relationships that I want to have? What can I do for myself to present myself in the best way possible in business so that I can have the financial lifestyle that I want to have, so that I can have the greatest impact on the people that I serve in the best, healthiest way possible? How can I show up and be the best father for my kids so that their experience is the best possible? And being able to turn around and look and say, okay, these are the areas I still need to work. These are the areas I still need improvement. And, it's going to be an ongoing process. But I feel like now I'm climbing that second mountain. I'm making my way up. It's not like I've been through the valley, right? And Nicole LaPera calls it Dark Night of the Soul, I think is what she calls it. Where like you're just going through this like survival mode, self-torturous BS. And, you're really just trying to figure it out and recuperate. And you're navigating this like dark forest. And, I feel like I'm through that, right? I'm sure like every so often I'm going to be like, ugh. But now I feel like I'm at the foothills of the mountain and I'm climbing it up. And I see, ideally what the top of that mountain would look like for me. And I'm making my way up there. And I'm getting my gear ready. I am, building my muscles. I'm eating well. And I'm doing the things that I need to do from a mental standpoint, from a social standpoint, to get there and make it happen. And I think that's all part. It's like if one mountain was the mountain of achievement, the fraudulent mountain of achievement of things that I thought I wanted, the second mountain for me is that mountain of authenticity. It's like me regrouping, being the best version of myself as I can right now, knowing I have work to do, and taking steps every day to climb that authentic mountain, discovering new things, going after things I've long wanted and some new things I'm finding now. And I feel like at the top of that mountain, I would be a lot happier with the life that I'm leading. And, we talk top of mountain like there's an end point. There's no end point until we're dead, right? We know that. So the end point being like on my deathbed, when I turn back and look at my life, I'm going to say, I did it all to the best of my ability, authentic to the person that I feel I am, as aligned with my morals, values, and desires. And so, if you are in the same place, what would be the 3 areas that I recommend you do, or the 3 things that I recommend you do right now. Number 1 would be to clean your house. And this is remove anything that does not serve you. Leave rooms that don't suit you. Stop doing activities that feel inauthentic to you. Do what you enjoy, but the first part of that is to stop doing things you don't enjoy. Stop doing things that don't feel good. And, for me, for a while, it was even like taking care of my house, yard work. Like I'd spend hours doing yard work and projects and stuff. And I had to quit. Not that I don't want my house to look nice, but at the moment, I didn't have time for it. I needed to figure something else out, and I needed to use that time to figure things out ASAP. And so I cleared my schedule as much as possible. I stopped doing volunteer things. I stopped coaching. I stopped a lot. And I just took time for myself. The second thing I would do is learn calm. I've been on a slow road with this one. I plateaued for a while, but I started with the Headspace app at 2 minutes a day. 2 minutes was torture. But now I meditate anywhere between 40 minutes to an hour and a half. I do like a scheduled one as part of my morning routine for 20 minutes. But then if I'm ever feeling off center, like right before this podcast, I had a conversation that kind of like took me a little bit off center. I went downstairs and sat on my pillow and meditated for 20 minutes just to kind of bring myself back. And it works. It works. I don't know that there is another practice, prayer. It could be prayer for you. But I don't know that there's another practice other than being mindful that's had more of an impact on me, except number 3 here. But the second one here, being mindful. Take the minute to meditate. And as we've talked about in the past, people get frustrated because their mind is always wandering when meditating. Meditating is not sitting there with a clear head. Meditating is the practice of bringing your mind back from wandering. So whether you're focusing on your breath or saying a mantra, whatever, I focus on my breath or I focus on nothing. There's a different style of meditation where you just sit there and you just let your mind happen. But if you're focusing on your breath, people get frustrated with the mind wandering. That's okay. Like, bring it back. It's the practice of meditation, the practice being practicing bringing it back. And the more you do it there, the more you can do it in your daily life. As somebody's pissing you off, you can stop and say, okay, I need to bring it back. I even turned the chimes back on my clock downstairs, my Vecna clock, as my kids call it, because now when I hear those chimes, it's a momentary reminder to bring it back to center. No matter what I'm doing, take it back, bring it back to center. Okay, let's go. So that practice of bringing it back to center is huge, and brings emotional stability, centeredness, and I can feel it anytime I'm not there now. It's obvious to me when I'm not there. All right, the last one can be meditative because a lot of people can't do this in a focused way. Freaking read, or listen to an audiobook. But if you can read for 10 minutes a day about whatever is bothering you, you will figure it out. I've listened to so many books this year. I've read so many books this year. I typically have multiple books I'm currently reading all over the house or on my phone. And it's all about what I am going through. And all of these people know what they're talking about. My book list, you can find it on the website. It's at definedlife.com. And, whether it's learning how to create a safe place for yourself so that you can come to the world a safe and secure person, or whether it's your attachment style or how to be, a good spouse, or how to, deal with narcissistic people, or how to eat in a more healthy way. You're just gathering information. And as you gather information and experiences from other people, you gain more understanding. You don't feel so alone in the world because you know other people are going through this. And you gain an understanding of maybe why you are who you are. And from a meditative standpoint, sitting down to read and keeping your mind from wandering is a great way to learn focus. If you are one of these people like me who have a hard time focusing on a single task, try reading to exercise that. And start with 5 minutes, start with 10 minutes, try to go a half an hour. It's a hard task. It's hard to do, especially if you're not used to focusing on things. If you're used to just looking at your phone, looking at your email, talking to somebody, doing a little bit of work and just bouncing around like that, try reading. Try reading in a quiet place, solid, without looking at your phone, without doing anything else. Just read. It's hard. It's hard. So those are the three things. If you were going to start this now, if you're like, Nick, I hear what you're saying. I'm living a fraudulent life. I need to get more authentic. Where do I start? Stop doing the things. Clean your house. Stop doing the things that you don't want to be, need to be doing, and that are draining you. Stop doing them. Like, pick certain things out and gain time every day for nothing. Don't fill that space either. Unless you're filling it with something healthy. Just stop doing certain things. Number 2, learn how to be calm. Start with 2 minutes a day. Get it up to 20 minutes if you can. I'm not saying you got to meditate for an hour and a half every day, but you might feel like when you see the value, you might want to, but that might take a long time. So start with 2 minutes. Find calm. And then the last one is read. Read. There's some statistic out there that says like 60% of the adult population has never read a book. That's crazy. There's so much information out there. Read. And there are answers for you there. If you are questioning life, there are answers there for you. You just need to find the right books. All right. That's it for today. Was that deep enough for you? I don't know. I hope it was valuable. If you did find it valuable, leave me a positive review on whatever podcast app you're doing or using. And send me a message if you'd like. Feel free to send me a message. I'm Nick at definedlife.com. And I'd be happy to hear from you. You can also find me online on social media at Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. All of them are Defined Life. So find me there. All right. Keep moving forward. Live your best, most authentic life. And I will talk to you next week. Take care.